Hey, brother, thanks ever so much for coming on this podcast. We really, really appreciate you. This is the Beyond the Beard podcast, and we talk to therapists, healers, we talk to psychiatrists, psychologists, all that basically. We talk to all these medical sort of professionals or people with backgrounds in therapy. And you are my friend, but you are also an amazing therapist. I've seen it in action in the group that we run called the Brotherhood. So yeah, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, brother. Pleasure to be on here with you, co-creating some magic.
Always, brother.
Yeah.
Always. There's always magic when we get together.
Introduce myself. Wow, what a question. First of all, my name is Alexander Eley. I live in Swansea and I live with
Naval.
my wife and three kids, two of whom are stepchildren, one is my own. And I am currently here on this journey of life, exploring different ways of supporting people, not just men, just men and women, and in turn supporting myself, because throughout my life I've had my own challenges, and I still feel like I experience a lot of challenge with my health, my nervous system, especially like from through ADHD and like childhood trauma, then drug addiction and the military and PTSD, and I still feel the the reverberations of that, like as if I experience a lot of fatigue. Life happens to me quite quickly sometimes, and it takes me time to recover. If I hold space, it takes me time to recover. I have to really be mindful how I give my energy away, So, yeah.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, two things there is I remember ages ago we was talking on WhatsApp, and you said to me, I'm only starting to realise how fucked my nervous system is. Man, that hit fucking chord with me, bro. Like seriously hit a chord with me, and it's been sitting with me since, really. And you know, myself included, but I'd done all this work on me. I got sober, similar to you. I'd stopped the drugs, stopped the drink, and really focusing on this personal development path, whether that be through more spiritual means like shamanism, or whether that be through like psychological therapy, DBT, psychotherapy, psychology, whatever it might be. I didn't realize how important the somatic practices were. And for those that don't know what somatic practices are, maybe you could explain, this is your bag, but since having these sort of deep conversations with you about the nervous system and how important it is, like I knew it was important. I taught it. I did a vagus nerve course where we learnt about vagal toning and how humming and stuff can make a massive difference to your nervous system, and how it vibrates the vagus nerve, which is called vagal toning. There's some great books out there where I think it's called Dr. Habib Nazim or something like that, and he runs
Mm.
one, Heal Your Vagus Nerve, Heal Your Life, or something like that. It's really good. So, but that being said, I really didn't realize, and when you mentioned that a while ago, now I was like, "Fuck! I've been in fight or flight for my entire life.
Mm.
Like, I can't. I don't know. Even still, like, I know that I'm so much better, but even still today, yesterday, day before, there's moments where I'm like, fuck, this is what's going on, right? I just have to lay down for a minute, like, or do something where I'm regulated. So that being said, brother, like what is this somatic practices? Like, what is, yeah, what do you do? So what does this regulation feel like, and what do you do when that happens?
Yeah, it's a good question. Somatic therapy and somatic work is working with the body, ultimately working from a bottom up approach. So that is understanding how you feel within your body, how you feel, how you tolerate different situations, how you are just on a day-to-day basis. If life feels like it's really, if you feel like you're walking through mud every day, you're more likely in fight or flight. If you actually don't feel that much, you could be in freeze or fawn. So there's like different states of the nervous system which a lot of people are not recognizing that they're in. And there's a window of tolerance where most people can feel okay and safe. And then maybe, something happens, there's a noise, or the kids start ramping up, and all of a sudden you feel flustered. You start to like get a little bit itchy, a little bit agitated. You're your breath quickens and you're like, you're pushing into your fight then and flight. And most people don't recognize that that is a nervous system state. They just think, oh, I'm really annoyed now. I'm starting to get aggravated. Like it's the kids, they are doing this. It's always the environment, which it is partly your environment, but ultimately it's because you're operating from a state of high stress. You're trying to function all the time in high stress, so that's why things become stressors to your nervous system. If if me and you now lived in the jungle all the time, it'd be much harder for us to be infected by our environment, because we'd be attuned to the earth, we'd be grounded, we'll be living in a different rhythm to how we live in this country. So this country is like very financially driven. It's really like anchored into scarcity and security, all these things. They these things affect our nervous system and all the other stresses that come with, being on time for things. That's another stress, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah,
this time mechanism we live in. It's like, how stressful is that? You're like, oh my God, I feel late. So, this feeling of being late, you're putting yourself, you're thinking, oh, I'm late. And then all of a sudden you're activating your nervous system because you're like, oh, I'm going to be
yeah,
judged to this. I'm getting in trouble now, all this other stuff. These thoughts, which ultimately trigger us in fight or flight because they create stress. Stress is just how you respond to a thought, really. If you had no thoughts and no feelings, you wouldn't get stressed because there'd be nothing to respond to. But
yeah,
ultimately, yeah, basically the best way to understand somatic healing is to understand how to ground yourself. So number one way of grounding yourself is to look around the room slowly, left to right, really, really paying attention to detail of what's around, like different colors. I can see plants around me. I can see like over my shoulder, there's a wall and a desk, and that would be like scanning your environment really slowly to communicate to your body, or I'm now slowing down. I'm now entering a safe space, because like if there was something that was if there was a real risk in my environment, I wouldn't sit still. I wouldn't be scanning my environment to gather safety. If there was like an animal near now, like I wouldn't sit down and assume a grounding process, because I'd be like, oh, I need the cortisol, I need to ramp this up, I need the adrenaline. So naturally, I'm like bam, 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 escalating, because that's naturally what needs to happen. But our bodies are so conditioned to escalating quickly because our parents escalated quickly, our teachers escalated quickly. All these people through life are like, when you're a kid, people are like, "Arr!" Just like straight away, they're on your back, like, and you're like, whoa, 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 I'm just being myself, like, and you get in conditioned to like respond to things with high intensity. I probably wouldn't be able to meet one person who, especially in this country, who's like had a really chilled childhood where their parents are like, take as much time as you need, make as much mess as you want, to do whatever you want. It's cool, like.
hmm yeah. I don't think I would be able to either, really.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, and I think obviously I know a bit about your background. Maybe we've skipped on a part, but you were in the military as well. Obviously you mentioned about the addiction thing, so maybe we could speak about that in a second. But I think for me, just from personal experience, like I can't remember any part of my life really, unless I was by myself or I was isolated myself, like put myself away somewhere, or you know was with nobody, very introverted. Then I don't think any part of mine was peaceful, really, really. And I think I think naturally I'm a fucking lazy guy too. So when that peace comes, I almost welling it. I almost lay in it. I'm like, oh God, give me this every day, non-stop, all the time, which is then somewhat counterproductive because I then don't do anything. I'm like, that's what happened. Sort of. I remember growing up at school. My dad was never there. He was obviously away drinking all the time, and I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was just try and survive. So like, I didn't have to go out. I didn't have to wash reports. Didn't have to do anything. Like he'd come back and have a go at me, but it wasn't there, so I didn't really care. And because it was so relaxed, I then ended up not showering and not brushing my teeth and not doing the basic hygienic necessities really to keep yourself somewhat presentable.
Mm.
So I'm neglecting myself by being that way, by having no stress in my life too, you know. So it was like, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is like I feel like for me personally, some stress is needed, but there's a very fine line for me between having enough stress to keep me engaged in reality and not nihilistic, but not having that ever so slightly too much where I then become dysregulated, where I become anxious, where I get in my head, I can't get back to my body. You know, it's all so disconnected.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think about that a lot. I think about this idea of can I act without being dysregulated too? Because dysregulation is so normal, was in my life. If I'm not dysregulated, then who the fuck am I? You know, if I'm not anxious or I don't have these attachments like I had majority of my life, then who am I? Like my identity is gone. Like my boxes I've put myself in have disappeared. You know, I've lost touch with what I thought was reality. You know, so I think in naturally my response is when I do start settling down, it's like, okay, let's up something, let's go to the gym more, or let's work harder, or let's do that, because it sort of keeps me feeling safe. It keeps me feeling safe because
Yeah.
that's all I've ever known.
Yeah.
So, with someone, say for example, with my background, um, how would how could they get to a point, or what could they do daily? Obviously looking around as one. What could they do? What activities? What exercises? What could they do to let themselves know that being relaxed is okay too?
Mm.
You know, what's like your daily routines? What's that sort of thing? How do you keep yourself regulated outside of looking around? What is can meeting up with friends be a regulation? I mentioned, so you mentioned before about this co-regulation with partners. Like,
Yeah.
I've only learned that from you, so I'm sort of taking that and implementing that in my life. Like, yeah, just speak a bit more about that, and also maybe speak about what dysregulation shows up as in the body, because I think as well, like from my experience with clients, they don't even know what dysregulation is. They just know that they don't feel okay. Do you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't know the somatic. They don't know the actual body sensations of dysregulation. So, yeah. Sorry, I've
Yeah.
rambled
Yeah.
there.
No, that's a really good awareness to be brought onto like nervous system states, especially feeling dysregulated, and someone who's experienced trauma in a childhood naturally then is living in a fight or flight state, which means you want to move around all the time, like fighting and running away is a move. It's a heightened state. It's like if I'm still, I'm in danger. Stillness is like not safe. So my reflection on that is I experienced like physical abuse as a child. My father was abusive to me, put me into fight or flight, actually in freeze and in fight or flight, like like that, back and forth, freeze, fight or flight. But then I was medicated on Ritalin because I had this, I had, I had a neurological injury then basically because I was being abused from a young age. So then basically my body and mind has learned that life's not safe, and then I get medicated by Ritalin, which is a stimulant. So I'm then attuned to feeling like being stimulated in some way by drugs, alcohol, you know, risky behavior. That feels like even more of a normality to me. So like if I'm slowing down, I'm like getting a sense of like I shouldn't slow down. I need to move. Like I need to change plans, have different, like change ideas, change careers, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's like this massive tangent of like trying to stay away from the original pain that was caused when I was younger. And I never knew that, I never knew that I was so traumatized in childhood until really recently, really, when I'd worked on the Afghanistan stuff. I'd gone through like the EMDR and done all the stuff on the trauma that I've like picked up in Afghanistan, but I like overlooked all the stuff in childhood. Really, because it was in a because it was in a freeze state. And I've said this to clients recently. I said, "Oh, when you think back to childhood memories and you think, oh, I can't feel anything. Actually, it doesn't affect me. That's not true. Actually, it's more likely that you're in freeze, and when you reflect on the memory, it doesn't feel like anything because you're frozen in the memory. And what does freeze feel like? It feels like disassociated and numb. So the illusion I was under was, yeah, I can remember this happening, but it doesn't feel like anything. So I processed it, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow. And when I sat in it with Dave, actually, I sat in this memory, and he was like, "What can you feel?" I was like, "Nothing." And then I was like, I had this epiphany, and I was like, obviously, there's some feeling attached to it because I'm only little, and it must be like the most frightening thing I've ever been through. So for me to feel nothing is not, it's not realistic. That's not real or true. So I just had this massive thought of like, oh, I'm in freeze. And basically, freeze is when you feel disconnected from life. You feel like life is exhausting because you're not really attuned into anything, any emotional cues, anything from your past. It's not being allowed to be processed because you don't have enough safety in the body. You don't have resource in the body. And what resource is basically the capacity to deal with the past trauma.
Yeah.
So when you and almost this embodiment of this is like not always a choice. It's like something that's happening for us and to us. So all the relationships we're in, all the drugs we do, all the drink we do, these are like, signals that there's something under the hood that needs to be looked at. So these are opportunities rather than like sabotaging moments. So when we're in that relationship, which is not right, we're in this party doing drugs and drinking that. It's like a massive sign to say you are in pain and you're hurt and you're scared, and like seeing those as just for what they are rather than saying like, oh, I'm diseased, I've got this massive illness, like I've got this addiction, which is like, I've got a disease, I've got this and that. It's like, not, that's not true. Like when you're born, you're not alcoholic, even though I've heard people say that. When you're born, you're not an addict. I've heard people say that too. That's just that's thinking in fantasy there. That's like giving yourself more reason to confirm why you are the way you are, right? Rather than think, okay, I'm this way because I was hurt, like I'm in pain. That sounds more compassionate than saying, oh yeah, I do drugs because I'm diseased. I've got
Mm.
this illness. It's like, wait a minute, like, was you diseased in the womb? Was you an addict? Like, when you conceived in the sperm, were you just like given this label by God or by higher to be like, oh, this one's an addict, he's always going to be a drug addict? It's like not my experience. My experience is that from having this dysfunctional childhood, from having all this trauma in school and all this stuff in the military, no wonder I drank. No wonder I did drugs. I had so much going on in my body. I don't want to feel that. It's like, it's either kill myself or do drugs and drink.
Mm.
And naturally, there's a part of us which wants to extend the life, isn't it? It's always about life extension. It's always about survivability. So whether you know it or not, you're going to do that drug so you don't pull the plug on life. You're going to drink that drink so you don't pull the plug on life. Like, it's like the body's best way of getting out of the pain and suffering. In essence, it's very intelligent, like what is happening. The body and mind is so intelligent, it's always trying to like comfort itself or soothe itself, even if that's destroying part of it.
Mm.
It's still intelligently looking at it from point of view of, okay, I know I'm degrading the self, but in that degrading process, is there going to be a moment where you pop your head up above the water and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I've got, because you get these moments in time, don't you, and in life where it's almost like you get given a little window of space and you get given a chance to look at stuff. And there's other moments you could probably relate to this where you're deep in addiction, you're deep in it, and you're just in it, and you can't do nothing about it. You're in it, like, and then all of a sudden it's like pop, and you're like, and then that moment when you're like, I need to look at myself right now and change. I need to like have a crack at this and try and work on it. And then, sometimes you might go back under, but there's like almost little windows in it where
Mm.
you get
Yeah.
given these great moments of grace. And for me, it's like, it feels like existentially like you're going through a process and part of you is like, this is good for you, so you can suffer. So, I don't want to rescue you straight away. This is almost like something in you for you. So you can be as low as this and feel as shit as this and feel as heavy as this. And then once you untangle yourself from this big bird's nest, you're like, okay, I really understand now the complexities of the personality that I've been given,
Mm.
or the body that I inhabit. It's like you really it's like you really get into the meatiness of what healing can look like, and what evolution can look like as a being. And that comes through, sitting with yourself. That's the key for me, is like sitting and listening to the body, and listening to the nervous system, and be like, okay, how do I feel right now? And then like you get like a window of you can build a window of tolerance. Do I feel cold? Do I feel like stuck? Do I feel like tired, exhausted? That could be like, that could be the towards the freeze end. So you're in a cold state. Chinese medicine, hot and cold. Too much heat, anxiety, too much heat. Fight or flight. You're like thinking in the future. Woof, woof, woof. Accelerating. Am I accelerating right now? Okay, yeah. I could say yes, I am. Okay, I'm quite hot then. So to like counterbalance that, you could be like, right, I'm gonna have shower. I'm gonna add water to myself. Not necessarily a cold shower, but like it could be like some running water. You could go outside on the grass, ground yourself, slow down in it. Add some coolness to your practice. Go for a walk. If you feel in a cold state where you're like struggling to function, some people, I get this quite often actually. You're like, where's my energy? Can't get myself kick started. It's almost like I need to. Do you know, like when you have a chainsaw and you're like, vroom,
Yeah.
just not going, like, and you're like, what the fuck? You're like, okay, how can I improve this into a balanced state? That's when you can use like fire breathing. That's when you can do somatic shaking outside. Like it's almost like you're waking yourself up from a slumber. You're like, come
Yeah.
on, let's wake up. Jumping round, maybe go for a jog, something like that. It's like adding a bit of fuel like to it. So
Yeah.
once you have like an idea of how your body functions, it's better suited for you to strategize, rather than be like, oh, I'm just really fucked all the time. I'm really knackered, or I'm always anxious. I'm always this. I'm always this. Rather than like seeing it like that, just one way or the other. See it as like, okay, I need more coolness. I need to slow myself down. I need to bring myself into stillness, and balance myself. You know?
I think as well, like the cues are so different for every person. You mentioned there about hot or cold. I think if I reflect back or even think about like today, have I felt hot and cold? No, but I think because I've almost done this work for a few years now, I don't recognise my own cues, and my own cues are dry mouth. That's definitely one for anxiety or increasing overthinking. Any form of upper, it's dry mouth. That's my first cue.
You're getting heat in
Yeah,
it. The dries your mouth, in it. Heat,
dry,
heat, heat,
dry.
heat, heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
First cue. Second cue is start avoiding or silence. So, say for example, I was having a panic attack now. I'd be like, and I'd just like look away. I'd be like trying to grip onto anything that isn't addressing the thing as it is. And we spoke about this on the last podcast as well, about I now know that when those things are happening, I've got to just fucking hit it on the head. Say it. If I'm getting anxious, I'm like, hey bro, I'm actually getting really anxious right now. I'm just gonna have a few minutes, or I just wanted to let you know that if I just disappear, I'm just gonna go catch my breath. I'll be back. The minute I do that, the anxiety's gone, bro. It's not there. It's like the hand has just come in and grabbed the thing that was tight in my chest and my dry mouth, and it's just took it out and just got rid of it.
Yeah.
And in terms of the other stuff, like this slumber, I think, reflecting back on what I said before about I get so complacent, I think that's the other extreme for me, is that I get so complacent. I am in this freeze. I'm like, oh God, I've gone the other side now. So imagine like the experience of life is in the center. Like this epitome of life is there. The perfect feeling, emotion, but able to regulate, able to have conversations, not get stressed, triggered, or worried, anxious, whatever, is in the middle. To the far right is this constant need for doing something, or the constant need for pressure because I don't know what it feels like without that. But then on the left hand side of that center is doing nothing, because if I feel in the center, then I've got to feel my shit, and this is the part my body don't want to be in, because it's like, no, we can't look at that. And
Yeah.
I say to my missus sometimes, I say like, I try my hardest every day to look at my things, I do, but some days I don't want to, and that's
Hmm.
okay too. that's my boundary of like, I'm done with looking at my own stuff right now. I'm just gonna not speak about this, or I'm gonna just do the thing that I know isn't 100% beneficial, but in that moment, it's actually okay. And because then it allows me or gives me room or space to go back to the thing the next day. Like say if I'm getting overwhelmed, I don't know, I'm anxious, I'm worried, whatever, and I think, I can't deal with this. I've got to go for a run. I've got to go and do this thing that should increase my heart rate and technically give me more anxiety, but doesn't. It completely does the opposite for me, because of the cortisol release into the body. So I go do these runs. I come back, I can just chat. I can chat. I can talk and do whatever. Even though I've already maybe been to the gym once, sometimes even twice. Sometimes I go for a run at like 11 p.m. and I'm like, I can't fucking deal with this. I need to go for a run right now. There's no other option. If I don't do that, I'm gonna die or something. So it's like that safety mechanism. But after I get back the next day, I'm back into it. I'm back into being able to recognize things that are coming up in me, be able to have these hard, difficult conversations with your partner or your friend or your work colleague, whatever. Yeah, I think the somatic exercises, even just recognizing cues in their own body, like people having the awareness to do that and really taking the time to do that. Like this isn't, you're not going to have one panic attack and then just recognize all your cues and that's it. You're going to be good to go for the rest of your life. Like,
Yeah.
mine took years and years and years and years, and even still now today, I still fail. In the last, I'd say since I got sober, the year I got sober, I was fucked, man. Like fucked for the year, and then I sort of started like getting over the hill. So then I'd say since that year in 2021, 2022. I've probably had six panic. I've had less than 10 panic attacks since then. But when I was on the drugs, or when I was like, I would have panic attacks every day, mate. Like I took the drugs so I didn't have panic attacks. Like mine was dissociative, so I would like take these fucking diazepam, Xanax, ketamine, whatever it was, just to chill my nervous system out. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I think in the last 10 years, but it took all that time up until 4 years ago to recognize those cues. And I've had therapists all my entire life, so like this isn't going to be a watch this video and that's it. That you're going to be amazing, can do it straight away. But the more that they do it in their own time when they don't have anxiety, when it then comes to then the point where they are anxious, it'll just almost be second nature. That their thought process won't be, I need to get out of this. It'll be, how do I go through this? How do I accept this? How do I go into this emotion? Like rather than like trying to pull away, I'm gonna go, oh, right, what's coming up with me? Okay, my chest's tight right now. Okay, what can I do to slow it down? Be authentic, express it, or have some time alone. Go get outside, cool yourself down, like you mentioned, get fresh air. Yeah, it's an interesting one. These somatic practices. I'm still learning loads, man. You're a great teacher. You definitely helped me loads. So thank you. In terms of, there is one thing I wanted to come back to was this. I know you mentioned about the PTSD thing. PTSD, obviously, people just instantly think war, Afghanistan. Well, mine was like complex post-traumatic stress because it was more psychological. Like, it wasn't like I didn't see my mates get blown up or out like that, like, thank God. Luckily I wasn't old enough to go to Afghanistan when my regiment went, so I was, the little bod on camp, but for those people that are thinking, oh, well, I ain't gone to war, I ain't seen anything like that, I can't have PTSD, I can't have this, they can. And what, from your experience from PTSD, like, again, does it come back to this somatic practices again, or is there another way that you do it? Do you see a therapist, or do you go into like linguistics? How did you get over that? What was your process from returning back from that and getting over the PTSD?
My initial, I would say unrecognized. I lived with complex PTSD from a child. I just never knew it until all the shit hit the fan, basically, when I got back from Afghanistan the second time, and I just could not cope with the stress in the nervous system. After the first time, I like my drug use went up. In the military, using drugs like on the sneak, and just like spending weekends doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and then obviously all the shame that comes with that and the guilt, and obviously like it's just like it adds a lot of trauma to the system, doesn't it? Doing all this stuff in the background, you're like, I'm a military person, like shouldn't be doing this. It's like completely opposite of what it stands for, to a degree, really, to wear uniform. And then So when I went for therapy, I worked with EMDR therapy and
What is it?
worked
What
on
is EMDR? Sorry, just
eye
so.
movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. So that is working with eye movement when you're working with memories and using eye movement to reprocess the memories. And the way that it was explained to me, I'm not trained in EMDR. It's basically like in your mind you have a library, and there's books on the shelf, and each book is like a segment of your life. And some books are bright red, and what you do is you take the book, which is got a lot of heat on it, so that could be a very charged memory, and then what you do is open it, that's the memory, and then reprocess it in that way. And it is really a powerful way of working.
Did you find it was beneficial for you?
Yeah, so that helped me deal with recent trauma. But no one ever pointed out for me was like, oh, what happened in childhood. And if they did ask me about my childhood, I said, oh yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened. But because I didn't feel anything about it, because I was just like in freeze, I was in freeze from a young age. I didn't know that was a point that I needed more EMDR, I needed more eye work, I needed more reprocessing for that little kid, for me as a child. And what it looked like for me was like acute PTSD, which was like single event ambush. I was ambushed on top of a vehicle. I was a gunner, and I was just like getting absolutely hammered. And because I couldn't move and I was in turret, it massively impacted me. So there's research to show that a lot of people who are stuck, basically, and something traumatic is happening to them, a lot of people who have medical trauma, so people get put in under anesthetic when they're in fight or flight, it basically like really traumatizes them. And it has massive impacts. It creates PTSD from that event. So like they're like, oh my God, I'm really, really gonna, they're having massive anxiety, a massive like fearful feelings about having operations, and then they have anesthetic, and because the body is shut off, boom, creates massive impact moving forward. The same with people who are like strapped in vehicles, or they're like contained some way. So in Peter Levine's book, he gets run over and he gets knocked over the windscreen, and when he comes round, his body like wants to do these movements, and he allows it to happen. So he's like doing all this stuff. You might like have done it in therapy or seen people doing it in medicine work, or like in different therapies where people are going just shaking and do all this stuff like an animal would. That's a natural process of the body releasing like the energy of what's just happened to the body. But when you're contained, or when you just can't do that, when you're a child, or when you go into freeze, it doesn't happen. So you're like stuck in time, basically. You're like stuck in a moment. And my symptoms were like quite severe. High vigilance, high anxiety, nightmares, like really acute noise awareness, like would put me on edge, like that. Boom, like that. Whoa, it's like, and that's like highlighting to everyone who's going to watch this. A lot of nervous system states are automatic. They're like programmed from a young age. So they say we inherit our mum and dad's nervous system. So my mum was a very anxious person. My dad, I don't even know how to describe him really as a person, but he was an alcoholic. So, and he was an angry person. So that shows to me that he's very dysregulated as a person, and that's no choice of his. Like he's received whatever he received in his life. So I was born, into the world with a nervous system which was accustomed to anxiety, anger, rage, addiction, all these things like that. And then I was, brought up in an environment where it was quite active, violence, abuse and things like that. So I learned fight, flight and freeze automatically to protect myself from different situations. So when I'm in a relationship, and when my wife challenges me with something like a criticism or something like personal, I could be like, really feel that, like, and that's an automatic stinger, and I'm like, oh wow, and I feel like attacked, even
Yeah.
though it could be really subtle. Like, oh, do you take the recycling out? I'm just like, like still something like that. It depends how you feel, or you haven't taken the bins out. Like it's like, oh wow, just like a ping.
Mm.
And it's
Yeah, yeah.
this is something that's automatic, but after you recognize, or I'm being, I feel something when I'm criticized. I feel something when someone says something about me personally, especially if it's someone in a relationship. And the way to understand if this is something that you do, if your wife or partner is like has been hurt by someone else, and you can comfort them and space hold perfectly for them, yeah. But then they say, actually, it's your fault, and then you're like, oh, I can't cope with this now. I gotta run away, or like you get triggered, or you become like defensive. That's a key. That's a key factor in understanding like that you have a really hurt inner child, and there's a part of you which is still in boy mode, or like little kid mode, and little kids take things personally. I say to Arthur, oh, you look like a pirate, or something like that. I say it as a joke, and if he's not feeling in a good state, he'll be like, oh, what do you mean I look like a pirate? And like take it really personally. But on another day, he could feel like, at capacity, I could be like, oh, right, pirate man, and he's like, oh yeah, pirate man, just like he's on,
Mm.
he's on form then.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that because I noticed with myself that I would take things really personally when someone says something about me as a person, like a criticism. But if I'm holding space for someone or something that's happened to them by someone else, I'm on the ball, like. So I
I
was
think
like, oh yeah, it's a good recognition actually. And something happened the other day actually with Elle, and she like challenged me on something, and I was like, my body just went switched off, like it went into a little bit of a dissociation, a little bit of freeze, and I was like, and she's like, "Oh, you gone into freeze, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, I have. Like, I just can't continue this conversation a minute. Like, give me a moment." And I was just like really understanding that wasn't choice. You know, I didn't be like, "Oh, don't like that. Freeze, off I go." It's like, "Oh, this is happening to me, but it's happening for me, so I can recognize. Oh, okay, there's a part of me which needs something right now. What is it? Okay, I feel like that comment was about me as a person, but actually, it's not about me attacking me. Point of observation about my behavior. So I've said or done something, which naturally anyone in relationships within their right to say, oh, I don't like that, or I like this, or I don't like this, or whatever. And then you can respond maybe automatically and not as a choice. But then when you come out of that and say, that's when the communication is key for like people who have trauma or nervous system stuff. There's a moment where the anger is the anger. You're in it there. And then when it's not the anger anymore, that's when you can start to reflect and go, okay, I need to talk. This needs to be spoken about. Like I need to like release the shame from it and say, oh, I'm really sorry that like I reacted in that way, but I felt this. I felt this. I thought you were talking about me. I thought you were attacking me, but I know you weren't. But the deep reflections come in, and it becomes more of a collaboration then between you and your partner rather than a tit for tat or like a resentment battle, in it.
yeah, yeah. That happens to me, man. 100%. And I don't mean to. I really don't mean to. Nor do I want to. But I've got so much better. Got so much better now, and I think it as well. It helps with Miriam, my partner, because if I say she says something to me, and I just instantly straight on the defense. She'll recognize I'm on the defense and then make a joke, which
Mm.
then like is my cue of like, oh, this isn't serious. It's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes, majority of the time, it works, but sometimes she's like, we're both on the defensive or attack, and we're sort of, having a disagreement, but we never shout at each other. We're very healthy in that respect. We talk, we disagree, but we talk, and I think that's important to note is that we are human, and we are going to feel emotions. We are going to feel anger, pain, upset, grief, suffering, whatever it might be, to some degree at some point. And you might feel like your partner, your friend, your boss has said that or done that to you. And yeah, upon reflection, hindsight, it gives you the ability to actually look back and go, "Oh, that was an interesting reaction I had." And if that reaction keeps coming up over things that shouldn't have that reaction, then maybe it's not those people that are saying those things. Maybe it is yourself, you know. Maybe it is the way that you are reacting to a situation rather than having the ability to pause for a second and think, is this about me, to me, or for me, you know? And these things happen in one of those three. Um, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. You said a little golden nugget for me there as well, and it's gone now. I'm sure it'll come back. I was like, fuck, I need to write that down. The other thing as well I wanted to discuss is addiction. You know, addiction, drug use is so common. Like, I remember growing up, all my mates would be on the gear. You know, from an early age, I used to miss school or go behind the cadet block and smoke bongs as a kid. You know, just like crazy shit. Used to save up. I used to sell sweets at school. Saved up my lunch money and just bought drugs with it. You know, drugs and alcohol for the weekend. Massive bottle of Cactus Jacks and fucking 20 Richmond Super King menthols, and yeah, smoke some shotties which were like bongs against the wall. It's crazy shit, really. And as that sort of developed over time, obviously joined the military. Well, it got worse first. You know, I got into like the diazepam and the ketamine before I left, but then joined the military to try to get away from it. Joined the Royal Marines. I did 2 years in the Royal Marines, sort of in and out because of injury, and then after 2 years left because I was just carrying getting injured. Transferred to engineers, but in between that again got back on the drugs. Went to engineers, and I was sort of like a functioning addict, really. As I mentioned on previous podcasts, I was using. I'd go and fake an injury, so they would give me like cocodamol, but then cocodamol you can take codeine, so I'd order codeine off the dark web by myself, and then say, "Oh, I can't do the CDT because I've got a letter from a chip from GP saying, oh, he can't do it as CDT because he'll fail because he'll take codeine, cocodamol." So I sort of knew how to play the game. That's what addicts do, innit? You sort of get what you want, and yeah, I just remember taking loads, man. Like some nights I'd be taking like 5 to 10 codeine tablets, like just sitting and eating, drinking red wine and eating cheese off an ironing board because I didn't have a cheese board, you know, in my bed, mate. Like just fully functioning addict. But I was still going to the gym. I was still doing all these things, and I didn't realise I was an addict until a few years later when I had the opportunity to try fentanyl lollipops, mate, and I was massive in Hull, where I'm from, but. And I remember I did the first one, and it just felt so good. You know, it was like, and upon reflection, now I know why it felt so good. It felt so good because my life was so shit. You know, and this sort of calming of the nervous system was what my body needs. You know, and this drug gave me it. So I remember doing that, and then I was like, I can't do this. Like, if I have what I just knew from that point I'm an addict. An addict. It was like that little gap that we talk about where you come out of it. Like I was so in it for years and years and years that I then just popped out for a second. I was like, I'm a fucking addict. I'm sat here in my boxers playing Call of Duty, fucking fentanyl lollies, mate. Like I'm an addict. So I was like, went back straight back into it, and ended up trying to take my own life and went into rehab and stuff. You know, did 6 weeks in like I can't remember what it's called now, like a psychiatrist, no, psych
Psychiatric.
ward, yeah, psychiatric ward, yeah, and 6 weeks in there in Basingstoke, and like, you know, with these like crazy people, man, I was like, how am I on a level with these? You know, people talking to inanimate objects and that because I was hearing voices and stuff, and I'm like, how the fuck have I ended up here? But coming out of that, that's when I sort of dived into my self development healing journey, if you want to call it that, and you know, really started taking my addiction seriously and looking at all addictions in my life: smoking, drinking, drugs, fitness. You know, I was addicted to that too. So, with that in mind, brother, like, well, like, share a bit of story about your story about addiction. Like, you know, how did you come about that? When did that start for you? When did it end? And what did you do to get sober? And how do you continue being sober? Because this is also important. People, they ask me, you know, friends, or sometimes even students, sometimes clients, you know, and I don't lie. I'm very honest, you know, like, and they say like, oh, how did you get over the addiction? I said, well, technically everybody, in my experience, still has the addiction. You just fucking learn other coping mechanisms and you recognize your cues to get off your head, you know, like, and it comes and goes in waves too for me. Like, even still 6 years later, there'll be days where all I can think about is drugs. Every single thought is, I need to get off my head. I need to get off my head. I need to get off my head. But it's not the addiction that I'm addicted to. It's the need to not feel the thing that I'm feeling, like we mentioned. So I recognize that my need to get off my head is a cue that I'm somewhat dysregulated, or even something's happening in my body that I don't feel comfortable with right now, and I can't escape it. I've got to feel it. So rather than taking the drug, I go, yeah. What's your experience with when did you, yeah, how did that come about? What was the addiction side for you?
Yeah. It's interesting you were taking you were taking painkillers, isn't it, because of emotional pain. And then
Yeah,
when you come out of your addiction, you had the moment of clarity, and then you like recognize the addiction. Then you try to like uncouple from it. Then the suicide attempts came then because like the pain is so much that you're like, I need to pull the plug on this.
yeah,
That's what I mentioned earlier. It's like the addiction is a survival mechanism based on your resource for feeling trauma from your past, and like you said, and you still got remnants of like things coming up, and like almost like bubbling up, and you're like, boom, thoughts coming up, like like suppress this some way because this is not safe to feel. This is like will be the end of me. This could consume me. I know from personal experience, like I thought, oh, if I feel this, then it'll be the end of me. Be no, I'm just gonna fucking collapse into space. Yeah, addiction. Wow. So I think that addiction is one of the greatest cries for existential connection to source and the creator through life. You're divorced from one thing or another. You're divorced from like love, care, and support from caregivers. You're not feeling any connection, like obvious connection or like palpable connection to source, spirit, or God. A lot of things with addiction with men especially is like really linked to father wound. Inner child wounded, father absent, abusive father. And this is quite common from my experiences. Like that's why British military is like full of people who are alcoholics, addicts, full of people who are like just quite, sketchy, ropey people, council estate, no father figure or lack of experience, young drug addiction, young like habits forming. When I was younger, I was like, really interested in drugs, like from a young age. Like, and I was like, wanted to take ecstasy when I was in my teens, and I was smoking weed, drinking. I think I done my first line of coke when I was like 16, 15 maybe. And then I joined the military to like escape that because I was thinking, oh, it's not me, it's where I live, because where I live is rife with it. And maybe I did like a year or two in the military, and I didn't feel the connection to the drugs. But as soon as I came back and I got bladdered and had a drink, I was like reactivated, seeking that line of coke. Like, oh, I need that. I need a line. Like it almost, if I think about it, I can almost like. I can almost embody that feeling of like you have a couple of pints or maybe 3 or 4 pints, and then you're like, okay, there's something. I need something more now. I need a line. I need something extra in this process. And I was like, I was like a functioning addict for my whole military career, really. And then every tour I did, it like increased the volume of it. So before Afghan, before my first Afghan, so busy with all different stuff. I didn't have time to do coke, really. I was just always working away. And the more I worked away, the less that the addiction parts of me became, in control. But then after a while, what I would find is like I'd get these massive cravings for drugs and massive cravings to go back home. I'd feel like homesick, and I'd be like, oh, I got to go back see my friends. But actually, that's like cover for let's go back and just like spend a weekend on a bender. Every leave period, I was like on drugs. Every Christmas, I'd probably nearly miss Christmas dinner, and because I'd be out in a party or just like being really rife in it, like. And eventually, I failed a CDT, but I managed to blag.
What is a CDT, brother? Just so people.
Compulsory drug test. So I was in an airborne unit in
Reg.
yeah. I was in. I can't even think of where it is now. Colchester.
Oh yeah.
And I was in a rough relationship at the time. My partner at the time was a functioning addict as well as me, so I was going on leave. Something happened. Some like a big situation happened where there was like I was involved with this guy pulled a sword out of me, and it was a big like confrontation. And like I was just from that moment, another thing happened, you know. So I was like using. Got drug tested, but I instead of doing the drug test, I used like I swapped the sample. I put something on my trousers and like used that as a sample, but it didn't have no creatine in the sample, so it was like coloured water. So it pinged straight away because it was not like recognised as being from a human being. Then when I got called into Sam Major's office, I was like, fuck. My life is literally just falling down in front of my eyes because I was like, this guy, you know, just come out of a bomb disposal unit, now in para unit. People were like, you know, they would see me as like, you know, special forces support because that's what I worked in. I worked with SFSG, worked with in Hereford and in Poole with the dive units, and worked with the Reg as their EOD support with the ECM, doing all the specialist ECM stuff. And as soon as that happened, it's like all this stuff that, you know, I dressed up in all these like costumes in it to make myself feel better. All this stuff I'd done in the military.
Putting
I
all
was
the
like,
waistcoats on.
this is all falling apart now. And it took me like 2 years to get discharged from the military, going through therapy. Just like literally went so far downhill. Smoking crack, was in like you know, drug dens, like smoking heroin off oil, people injecting and all that stuff. And it was like so tempting for me to do the heroin, but I was drinking Oromorph and taking like liquid morphine and stuff like that. So essentially, you know, I was judging them for like being heroin addicts, and I was like doing exactly the same as them, but in a different way, you know. So if the doctor gives you Oromorph and you drink it recreationally, you know, it's the same as like doing heroin off a bit of oil. Like it's the same. You're getting the same feeling from it. Like it's giving you a painkilling feeling. So I was like wrapped up in this you know, delusion of like, oh, you know, I'm using crack and heroin, but I'm not using heroin. I'm just using opium. So I was like, you know, making myself feel better. I went to rehab, and like I had many moments towards the end, but I was like, I'm suicidal now. Like it's either I kill myself or I couldn't live. I think living with the shame basically of being this way, and in such a strong contrast to how I thought I was before, even though I used drugs subtly all the way through my military career. I just like could not cope with the idea of being who I was long term. You know, like relying on crack and being this like I looked scruffy. I was like pale, just like I looked at myself in the mirror. I just would shudder like in like this disgust. I'd be like, oh my god, and I was like out of shape. And whereas like in the military, I was always in good shape, always like one of the fittest in the reg and that. And like I think the shame actually paralyzed me into a state of like I need to tell people like how fucked I am. You know, I need to tell people like what's actually happening. So I like spoke to my mum, and she said, "Oh, go and see if your nan will pay for rehab." So my nan and my uncle paid for me to go to a veterans rehab in Liverpool. Actually, Tom Harrison's house is called. So I went there within a few weeks, privately paid for, and just with all of the veterans, like all of the veterans and emergency services workers. Like there was like an ex-police officer there, mostly like Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and I just was recovering basically from crack addiction and, you know, alcoholism, coke addiction. Like I was taking Vals and that as well to go to sleep. I was like taking Zopiclones and all different things like that.
I remember on Zopiclone. Did it leave your mouth like a
Yeah,
metallic
weird, isn't it?
metal?
It's weird
Yeah,
taste, like,
weird. I
and
used
that I
to.
think,
Sorry to butt in. Yeah, that Zopiclone, man. Because I used to get packets of it, and you're meant to take one a day. But the addictive side of me just got addicted to them. So I remember taking like 3 or 4, and then fucking driving my car. And I remember I was coming up to this roundabout, and obviously your reactions are slowed, aren't they? And
yeah,
I'm like coming up to this roundabout doing like 40 mile an hour, and my mate's like, Naoki. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, this roundabout there, I need to slow down. But I just couldn't get my foot to press the pedal. And then I remember, like, something happened and it just went, I remember, poof, and just slammed my foot on the thing. He goes, what the fuck are you doing? I said, oh, sorry, mate. He's like, you on fucking drugs again? I was like, no, I just took my sleeping tablets from last night and I think they're just not wore off properly. So that again was that me getting back in it. And then I just, like, looked out for a second. I was like, nah, stop it,
yeah,
brother. Stop that shit. You know, I just got out of rehab, like, and that was like, I remember I went back and that Christmas I sort of had like, I just got back on it, mate, and after that, I was like, I need to move away from Hull. I need to move away from my hometown. So I ended up moving to a different town, and you've been sober ever since, thank God. But
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, back to yours. So
Yeah.
yeah, recovering from this addiction, brother. How did that feel? What was the somatic feelings for that? Like coming out of that, getting sober. Like how was that for the body?
This is like, it's just like you just need to rest really for a long period of time. But I just went straight into training mode. Within 3 months, basically, I was taking steroids, and because I felt better about myself, so I was like, oh, I'm going to take a year now. So I went straight from crack cocaine addiction, years of it, a few months sober, and then swapped sobriety. I swapped crack cocaine and alcohol for like getting on the gear. So I was like, lifting weights all the time, smashing, went massive. And then like had a new addiction. So I was like, fuck. And then like, to be honest, I've been like, life took me on quite a enlightening journey of like me thinking I'm healed, and then getting smashed into the floor, and then relapsing, and then using crack again, and then me thinking I'm healed again, and then getting smashed into the ground again. So there was like loads of things that happened from me being in rehab, and then I got a year's sober from alcohol, but I actually was injecting testosterone in that time frame. So I was like living in this false sense of pride, and people were like celebrating me, or I was actually in this massive loop of shame, basically, for like secretly like using tests. And then I relapsed on alcohol over the Christmas period, and then I like done, and then I used cocaine a few times, but like didn't tell anyone. So I was getting this like, well done, you're doing this and that, and I was just like extra shame, extra guilt, and the cost of shame of like saying, oh, you're living in deceit, or you're living dishonestly, or you're in a relationship and you're doing things dishonestly and deceitfully, like it's costing you a lot somatically. It's gonna be, you're gonna add weight onto yourself, weight, and it's like putting yourself in a cage basically of shame and guilt, and it'll affect everything in your whole life, until it comes out in some way. It'll come out some way, however that is. Life will show you the mirror. It'll put situations in your path. It'll put people in your path, and it'll show you how bad you feel about your actions, and and your deceit and your dishonesty. Maybe you'll encounter deceit and dishonesty like from other people, or stuff will be reflected back to you, mirror back to you. And I think the turning point for me was going into AA, because it forced me to look at the source and God stuff. And I think that a lot of this is just my own intuitive feeling about myself, a lot of my addiction was coming to terms with that there is something like a creator or a spirit or a source. There is something like that. And as soon as I acknowledge that in full force, without any like holding back or being like, yeah, I'm just doing this for my addiction, I literally felt like it's either this or I've got no other option, mate. Even though when I was in rehab, we went to 12-step meetings, I still had this little arrogant part of me, which is like, don't fucking need to be here. Like, I feel fine, And then when I actually went into AA and I was like praying and acknowledging source, and I felt like a massive difference in my life. And I was like, okay, I understand now that I've been denying spirit, and now I'm not denying it and I acknowledge it. It's giving me, I'm accessing something, a frequency. Like I've like removed this bullshit filter I put there, this atheism agnostic filter, which, makes me feel like, I'm in control of everything. Everything that I do is on my shoulders, all the pressure of life is on me. And I was like, I'm letting go of this pressure, and, I'm going to ask spirit now for guidance, and ask source for guidance. And, it's just like most other cultures do that, around the world, isn't it? And then a lot of people now in the West, especially in these like built up areas, are like, they don't acknowledge source, spirit, or creation. There's more atheism, I think. But even in the Bible, in it, they say like the non-believers and things like that. So it's like not as if there's always been an element of society that's going to deny God, and there's always going to be an element of society that doesn't deny it. And there's no right or wrong, is it, in that?
Yeah, yeah.
Just what I noticed for me is like I had a massive surge in my recovery when I let go and surrendered, and I was like, I really have no answers anymore. I'm not driving the car anymore. Fuck this. I'm giving up. Like I'm giving up, like trying to do it my way, which is from a lens of I'm traumatized as fuck. I've got complex issues. I've got inner child fucking tantrums. all this stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to follow this program and see how this goes. And it was really good because it gave me structure, it gave me community. It gave me a 12-step program is essentially like a way of elevating yourself away from shame, guilt, and acknowledging your behaviors and different things. Like it's shadow work in some way. But for me, it's like, it was just a process of going through that and I come out the other side. I went to medicine work then. So that's when I was like working with mushrooms and I'm working with psilocybin, and that was another layer on top of that, It feels like there's no like A to B on this journey. It's been like I've been like meandering like around this map, and like even like I felt God's presence and then not felt it, and then felt it again and not felt it. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this experience is like very subjective. So I could one day be like very connected to God or very connected to myself or spirit, and the next day feel like not connected to myself or very like, as if I'm not doing well and not doing good, even though I got a few years sober. So it was really, really interesting journey and being in a relationship throughout that period of time and throughout one of my relapses as well deepened the ability for me to heal because I was being held accountable by someone else. There was children in the mix as well. Elle was, shining a light on all stuff as well. And she was like, had my best interest at heart, where maybe my family just didn't know me as well as she did. They weren't aware as what was going on. And I'll always say, like, a relationship is the deepest ritual or the deepest ceremony you ever enter, because it's like, it's the most prominent mirror you can look into, innit? When someone else is like reflecting all your stuff back to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that, for a long time I was in relationships where it was not healthy. And then when it became time to be with Elle, it felt like it's catalyzed loads of my healing. It's like almost forced loads of things to be purged from me. So I had this, when I left rehab, I had this addiction to stealing things. And I was like, doing it for the thrill of it. I was like, just taking things that weren't mine. And that's something I did when I was younger. And it's things I've done. These are like little things I've done throughout my life. But I think it's like thrill seeking or like rebel. It's like being a rebel, basically. And it did make sense for me to do it when I was in recovery. Like the first year of being sober, when I was on tests and using tests and stuff like that. It was like really out of character, but it felt really good. It was like in this like shadow fucking realm of, okay, I'm sober again, praise for this, but I'm stealing things in the background. So like I couldn't get away from this Jekyll and Hyde personality split where I was like, okay, I like being this achievement guy, like I was in the military, achievement guy in military, but secretly got like addictions and like, all this stuff going on. So my relationship is like took both my personalities that I had and like put them into one, so I can like be radically authentic of myself, like most of the time, not all the time, but it's like slowly put me into focus, And I think if I was on my own for the most of my recovery, it would have took longer, I think, because I would have been able to just go under the radar and just like chameleon vibe, like a lot of my experience with trauma is like you're very chameleon based. You like blend in different groups. You don't really have a solid friendship group. You go from one to another. You're like very like masky. So like you've got different, personalities for different situations, and you're not really being true to yourself. You're not being honest with like things that are coming up for you in situations, like with people you don't really like for the wrong reasons. Like, you hang around with people who don't really have a true understanding of who you are.
How did you get onto the psychotherapy? Because obviously you now studied as a psychotherapist, or you're in the process of becoming a psychotherapist. I think, if I remember correctly, you finished your teachings now. You finished your university degree. You just have to sort of implement personal practice or something, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure. But how did you then come onto that? So... Oh, and why psychotherapy, brother? Like, there's so many other things that you could have done. Why did you choose psychotherapy?
Yeah. I think the reason why I switched over to study and academia and psychotherapy is a lot of the time I felt like I find, because of my experiences with my body and things I've been through, I find the normality of work and work in a corporate environment, which I did before. I'm working in different jobs where everything that I do has to align to the business or the corporation and things like that. The hours and the time and the structure. I find it impacts me a lot. So I would like go through different jobs and become really fatigued and burnout, or I was not getting the rest that I required, or I would just be in fight, flight, freeze, and different things like that. Still healing, and in these jobs, and I was becoming dysfunctional. And I was like, oh, I need to not work in this type of job. I need to have much more self-leadership. I need much more autonomy, so I can control my schedule and be able to switch clients and be like, oh, I'm not going to work today because I'm really cold in my nervous system, really hot in my nervous system. I like, basically I should be on PIP or something, I should be on a way of the government recognizing that, that I'm not suitable just to go into a normal job because of all the stuff that's happened to me, especially all the stuff with drug addiction, because it just really ramps up your nervous system stuff, all the drugs that you take, and it really affects your nervous system a lot.
Yeah.
It permanently affects it to a certain degree, so a lot of it was what's my strength? And I think my strength is that I'm a communicator, and I like to listen, and I want to support other people in the same way that I felt I was supported. Psychotherapy, mainly because my own lens of psychotherapy and therapy was through the lens of the therapist. So that's, top down, meaning you're working with the mind and concepts of different schools of thought, behaviorism, humanism,
Human.
human. Yeah, the school of behavior, you've got Carl Jung, Freud, and all these, the psychology and psychotherapy. Because that was my experience. I hadn't experienced somatic therapy before then, and somatic therapy is almost not seen as mainstream. So, in the psychology world and the psychotherapy world, you've got this they divide all the sections up. So you've got the mind, the body, and all these maps in between. I'm just this one thing. They've split all these things up within the psychotherapy and therapy and somatics. Everyone, if you're a therapist, you should really have a baseline in somatic therapy. You should have a baseline in psychotherapy. You should have a baseline in body work. You should have a baseline in sound healing. You should be really a well integrated healer.
Yeah.
Not just oh, I only work with the mind. But that's not actually possible. So my reason for going down that road is because it's the only thing I knew about, really. And even the plant medicine stuff that I've experienced, I thought, the best way for me to become a psychedelic therapist, which is not really as important as I felt like it was before, was to become an accredited psychotherapist, because then once you're in the academic space, you're seen as someone who's more reputable, So if I went away and did a level 1 hypnotherapy course, something like that, and then I was rocking up to the school of psychotherapy and saying, or the school of plant medicine therapy, psychedelic therapy, and saying, oh, can I join your psychotherapy training? They'd be like, you're nowhere near as qualified as you need to be. You need to have this, academic qual. You need to have done all these hours, all these supervised placements and all this. Need to have a tracking of your experience as a therapist. Once I was in it, sort of I think, before I joined the psychotherapy school, so before I went to university, I think I was actually a better listener, because when you go and train in psychotherapy, it makes you build all these models of therapy and all these models of things around people. So when you're listening to someone, you're like, oh, are you doing this? 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 When you when someone's sitting there, if you're thinking about what you're going to do, then you're not listening really. You're subtly, you're subtly lagging behind, in it, because you're trying to compute. Or I feel like I need to do something because I feel like I need to change something about this person. That's why they're here. They've come to me because they want me to help them or change them or fix them. And I'm not saying I think like I'm not saying that people think like that, but subtly, if I'm thinking, what do I do or what do I say, then it's like I'm trying to problem solve. You know, I'm trying to generate a solution. So before I knew about all these therapies and all these techniques and all these things within therapy, I was just, I was just a body listening to another body, and
Yeah.
that's why I did a lot of coaching before I joined up with my degree. And what I found is like what I've done is like gone way into the academic stuff, and I'm coming out of it now. I'm like, oh, actually, fuck the paraphrasing and the reflecting. That just like literally listen, see what they're saying, feel what it's like for them to be in that position. You know, like obviously that's not possible to physically feel what exactly what it's like, but can you empathize with that person? Like put their hat on for a minute. Like say no, someone's come with a certain issue. You're like, okay, what is it like for that person? And then you're just building compassion and acknowledging them,
Yeah.
rather than sitting there thinking, okay, I've got to do all these psychotherapy things in my mind, which I've been taught. That's not necessary. So it's been like a long road actually of like going into the academics, and now I'm practicing it for real, like as a therapist for a charity. I've noticed like I've got this pressure on myself to like do these psychotherapy things. I'm like, right, let's like uncouple from this and not do this because it's not helpful for the client. I'm just going to listen to them, and whether I say, what I'm hearing is X, Y, Z. What I'm seeing is that whether I say that or not, I'm still being with them, radically, and listening to them and looking at them and being like, okay, do I feel anything here? Am I noticing anything? I'm just like being an antennae for their experience. And the best thing to do is just to listen to them and to acknowledge what they're saying and to point out things that they might not notice. Like, oh, I notice it when you talk about your child, you put your hand on your chest, or you grasp your hands, or you put your hand on the back of your neck when you talk about your uncle or your and they're like, oh yeah, because it's another language in it. The body's talking in a certain way. So when you bring awareness to it, it can bring awareness to the process that they're going through. And I'm just learning that really. I'm learning to be a really strong mirror for that person without. A mirror doesn't think about being a mirror. A
Yeah.
mirror is just a mirror. So I'm trying to be the mirror without thinking about being the mirror.
I think as well, you caught me on that before. Was having a conversation about something, and you said, "Do you notice how you look away every time you mention X?" And I was like, "Oh fuck, he's got me." That was quite funny. Obviously, I don't want to go into details about what it is. 'Cause I'm still sort of processing it, and still sort of sitting with it. But it was, you caught me, man. You caught me, and it was my body's way of telling me, like, don't look at him in the eye when you admit this. Don't look at him in the eye because then he'll see you. He'll see you in that grief. He'll see you in that pain. He'll see you in that suffering. He'll see you in that all of that. And I was like, if I'm seen in that, if that thing is witnessed, and I'm allowed to fully be authentic with you, and you accept that with no preconceived conception or idea of what should the reaction be from my side, it's going to taint my view of the world, and I can't have that happen because I've got to stay safe in my view of the world, which is this lens. So
Yeah.
when you then said that, and I was like, yeah, and this happened, and you were like, oh, I was like, oh fuck, no, stop catching me out, let me hide.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that was pretty good, man. Like I've sort of tried to, I won't say use that, but I've sort of noticed or trying to notice more of that because it's such a good technique, brother. Seriously, like seriously, and we've had many phone calls. We've done a lot of work together in the sense of, I'm there for you, you're there for me as friends, and I feel like because of the work that we both do, mine with men, yours with men and women, I find even though we're friends, we still use all the techniques we've learned because they're what's the word? They work, man.
Mm.
They work. They seriously work. Like I'm the same with my clients as I am with my best friends. Like for the most part, obviously there's a bit more banter with your friends, but like if you come to me and said, "Oh, Naoki, I've got this problem, any chance I can call you?" I'd give you exactly the same treatment because that's the way that you should be talking to everybody. Like how you like not analyze, but how you say that to somebody, or how you hold space for them, or how you communicate with them is so effective, so nice and calming and acknowledgeable that it should be done across the board. You know, like seriously, I just yeah, I definitely have made so much progress from having conversations with friends like yourself, like my other friend Hugo, who's a psychologist too, and learned so much. You know, learned so much. A simple thing like that, like getting me to acknowledge the fact that I look away when I say something and how that makes me feel. And then I was seeing a physio. He's a friend of mine called Connor. Lives in Bromley. He's in the Brotherhood chat actually, but he's a physio, and he said something similar. So I was stood up with my arms folded and stood up directly upright, and I mentioned something about a pain. And when I mentioned this pain, I then dropped to the right hip. Anyway, that was that. Just carrying talking, did something else. I think we drank a coffee or something, and sat up talking again. And I mentioned the same thing, and dropped to the right hand side. And he said, "I've noticed that every time you mention X, that you drop on your right hip, like you like sit on the hip. Why is your left side not able to hold that?" And I was like, something happened in my body, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't tell you why that was happening. I just was like, this just doesn't feel right, as if he's caught that. Like, why? Like, this safety mechanism that I had to deter myself away from the truth, to keep myself safe from what I thought was a perceived threat. By me doing that, he's caught it. Fuck, I'm now then back where I was before, forced, pushed into, hey, look at this thing. There's no more running away now. You know, you can't go anywhere, brother. Hello, we're here. And
He's trying to light on it. He's like shining a torch on it, and then
yeah,
yeah, look at this.
yeah, you can't unsee it then. Like, even though it's gone black again and it's not there,
Yeah,
you now know because it's there. Yeah, you know it's there, but the light's not on it right now. But it's like it's in the background, and yeah, thanks, man. I think we've had some amazing chats, talks, and no doubt we will as well in the future too. I think. I love the fact that you're in the Brotherhood chat as well. You know, like people really respect you, bro. Like they really respect your opinion. They really respect your replies. Like the amount of people that have messaged me or come to me for coaching or whatever and said, I was like, oh, how you find the Brotherhood? And they've always they mentioned you, they mentioned Hugo, they mentioned Miracle Mike. You know, like three massive pillars in the Brotherhood community. You know, like and yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you, bro.
thank you, man.
It's a pleasure to have you in there. Like seriously, it's such a pleasure, such a pleasure. And it's funny how we actually met, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like we just got on straight away. Like I remember, all I remember, I can't remember what we was talking about. I just remember putting a photo up when I was in my camper van about like how stupid life is. You know how silly it is, and how like we're just like this blob of skin, right, walking around on this huge rock, floating in space, and I was trying to compute the size of the thing. So I was like, right, it takes me 5 hours to drive from my house, well, 7 to drive from my house to the bottom of Devon, right? That's one of the tiniest countries in the world, right? So then I went to Mexico and I did this thing in Mexico, and I was like, there's 800,000 kilometers of underground rivers in Mexico or something crazy like that, from the cenotes and all the rivers that connect them. So I was like, oh my god, that's like 100 times what it is in the UK, maybe more, 1,000 times, whatever. So when I then Googled, it was like Mexico is 10.9 times the size of the UK. So I was like, what the fuck? So I was like, right, it's 10 times that. So is there anything bigger than Mexico? And started like sort of working my way up, and I had this realization in my van of like, we are so tiny and small, and this thing that I'm worrying about is so like irrelevant in the grand scheme of life that I just sort of like subsidized all that. And then I remember I put a status or something, a post about it on my Instagram, and you replied back loads of laughing faces, and then was like discussing this idea of just the idiocy of life, just how
Yeah.
funny it is and how stupid it is. Like, and yeah, we had a good laugh, and then from there, obviously, we met up in Swansea, where you're from, and yeah, just become really good friends. So, like I say, it's a pleasure to have you in the chat, brother. I really do appreciate you. And
Thanks.
if have you got any closing words, brother? I feel like we've discussed quite a lot of stuff. I think, and the main aim or the main points really are like somatic practices, are cues, are getting back to the body, especially with people like have anxiety, this sort of thing. addiction. You know, actually, in fact, I'll just ask you one more question. Is in terms of addiction, you mentioned obviously God, source. You know, there's loads of words for this thing that people use. Actually, in fact, I've got another question. I'll go back to that question in a sec. The first question was, I remember you mentioning before about going on Ritalin because of the ADHD. So, do you think that addicts, this is just in a personal opinion, maybe to give a bit of theory on it, but from my understanding is people with ADHD are more likely to be addicts because they don't produce enough dopamine, or they produce too much dopamine. So then when they're low and they're extra low, then they have to get that hit. So it's like that's why they get addicted to stuff like drugs, because it's boom, dopamine, 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 dopamine. Same as like social media, dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. I get locked into social media, man. Like that's my fucking
Mm.
holy grail, mate. It's like I'll like do some work, right? I need to go on my notes on my phone, so I go on my notes and I say, right, I've got an Instagram message, right? I click that, boom, 20 minutes is gone. I'm fucking watching, I don't know, some guy do funny faces, or I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, get that shit off. So, in terms of ADHD and addiction, do you think that if people were to, get these, yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Like, what's the correlation there for you? Like, how would you sort of, if you sort your ADHD, will your addiction go, vice versa? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Addiction and ADHD. There's research which I can't quote from. There's a correlation between people who use Ritalin when they're younger. They're more likely to have issues with drugs. And how I see it is like you're taking a slow acting stimulant, slow release stimulant over however long as a child. That is like giving you some stimulation, frequent stimulation for the day. Then as an adult, we're looking for frequent stimulation through the day, So it's like almost there's a mirror in that. There's a connection there. So you're looking for that, that phone stimulation, bump, 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 bump throughout the day. It's like, whatever it's given us, if it's providing something in it, something to command your attention. Same as like drugs, they're giving you something. It's giving you something that you feel you need to sustain your life. And as a child, whether that's correct or not, to do that or to be given that, I believe it does have like an impact on the nervous system and like the neurobiology. And I can't like go into the pharmacology of it because I'm not like trained in that area.
Yeah.
But I just definitely feel that if you give a child, especially like a 5, 6, 7-year-old, methamphetamine like derivative, which is essentially what it is, like a form of speed, it's gonna have an impact on their development, like for
Yeah.
sure, 100%, man. So like if I give a child mercury, every day, they're gonna have a brain injury basically, and they think it's gonna have a massive impact. It's the same as like any drug. There has there's a repercussion from it, like 1,000,000%. Like I think, especially something as strong as that. Like, my personal opinion is that it creates more likelihood to move into addiction, because if you have been born with something within the neurodiverse area, a lot of them cross over, don't they? So you've got like trauma and neurodiversity very like linked. So if you experience trauma, you could have like symptoms of autism, Asperger's, you can have symptoms of ADHD, and all loads of different labels for neurodiversity. You can either have this neurodiversity like from birth, or it could be something linked to your childhood where it's been so impactful that it's changed your the way your brain is operating currently in it. So it's like you're moving into a nervous system state all the time. High cortisol, fight, flight, freeze, changes your whole life. When you're an adult then, and you're not using Ritalin anymore, your nervous system is still in a state of fight, flight, freeze, and you've got a lot of pain and suffering from your past. And this is just like linked to, this is just speaking for people who have had something happen to them that they can remember. And also, what's to say that your parents not meeting your needs how you needed to be met is not the most traumatic thing ever as a child. Yeah, you come into the world with complete love, and well, maybe not. You come into the world, however you come into the world, and then you are punished for being who you are. You're not given the support you need. You're not being seen. You're not being acknowledged. You're not like even be feeling love from your parents. In some respects, a drug is gonna seem like a likely choice.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
kill that pain, man. And that's what I think it is. It's to suppress a level of emotional, upheaval that's coming up because the body is naturally trying to heal itself all the time, and then there's another part of us which is like, yeah, but I don't want to feel that.
yeah,
It's not safe because my whole life has been unsafe. So feeling this is unsafe, and that's where if we're male and we like have been brought up in a Western environment, we're more likely not to accept therapy, more likely not to share how we feel. We're more likely to kill ourselves, and more likely to take drugs and drink as a result of things that have happened to us as when we're younger or when we're adults. And I would recommend and encourage people if they are experiencing like I don't even drink coffee anymore, man. It's too much for my nervous
yeah,
system. I
same.
don't. I've come off all social media because I felt like it was getting in the way. Of me just being me, I was like just looking through all this stuff on social media. I was like looking at stuff from different parts of the world, different conflicts. And I'm going, as much as I have empathy and care for this, it's not my worldview. I can walk around in my village, yeah, my little Welsh village, and like, this is actually my worldview. If I didn't know about like all the trauma around the world, then I wouldn't be carrying it around. I
Mm.
just don't think we're built to have such direct knowledge and understanding of all the stuff that's happening in the world. I think it's like really impactful for our nervous systems because like what we see on a screen essentially feels real. If you watch porn, you get an erection, yeah? That's how real your body thinks it is, yeah? So when you watch someone getting bombed in a different country, your body's like, fucking hell, that's actually real, It's like
Yeah,
it works either way, innit? Pleasure and pain. You watch something pleasurable sexually online on the internet, or even think about something pleasurable, pleasurable and sexual. You can get stimulation from it, like physical reactions. So that's the body thinking, I'm prepared to have sex right now.
mm.
And on the flip side is, I've watched videos made of stuff happening, and this literally triggered me like mad. I've seen someone getting killed in a factory, like getting pulled into one of them spinny wheel things,
Yeah.
and it's literally like caused riots in my body, mate. And I've gone, why have I just watched that? What the fuck? Like I find it really traumatizing. Like it's crazy. Wow,
Like
violent.
even you mentioned that there. Part of me is like, I almost want to watch it again as well because it's addictive.
Yeah,
That because it makes me feel so weird that I'm like, fuck, this is so normal. Like for me, because I've felt this awkwardness in my body for so long.
mm.
When then I'm like now, like feeling a lot calmer day to day. When then I get that, I'm like, oh, I remember that feeling. Well, where is that? Where's that gone? So I end up fucking watching this, and then that's the addictive thing in me. It's like
Yeah,
giving me this perceived sense of safety that I had as a child, but I didn't. I didn't have the safety. I just had the sense of safety because my body was in such a fight or flight thing, giving me the sense of safety to keep me safe from the actual threat. So yeah, it's hard, man. I try and stay completely off it, bro. Like seriously, to try and stay off it. It's not good for me. Seriously, not good for me either. So I hear you on that, brother. The last, well, two more questions. Second to last is, what is your favorite tool in your toolbox? So, like, what can the men that are watching this, and women, if women are listening, what can they take away, bro? Like, what can they add to their like resume of tools that when something happens in regards to maybe even do one for addiction and then do one for dysregulation, something like that. Whatever comes to mind for you, brother.
So, what tool could someone take away from this conversation?
Yeah, and implement in their life to benefit themselves.
Okay.
So
So,
you've mentioned one already, which is like the slow looking from left to right, noticing all the sort of tiny details, like the curtain. Right, oh, look at all the fibers on the curtain. Don't just look at the curtain. Look at the fibers. Look at the color. Look how it like the shadow bends around there. Look how it's like gradient. That sort of stuff. What's your favorite one? If it's that, we'll just stick with that. If you've got another one,
got another one, mate.
yeah,
So,
go.
okay. So, building resource in the body, yeah. So, how to build resources is there's a part of our body, yeah, which is more connected than any other part, and building resources, identifying where that is. So basically, the way to start building resource, you could do it with me if you wanted to. You can
Yeah,
get your
do it now.
rub the palm of your hand, put it on the back of your head, where you know where that little lip is, the base
Yeah.
of your skull. So just put your hand on the back of there, and really, are you sat in a chair with a back? So really feel the back of the chair and feel the hand connected, and I want you to open your eye and look to your extreme left without moving your head, and relax your jaw and breathe through your nose, and notice if you're holding your breath. Keep looking to the extreme
Oh,
left.
yeah, I was holding my breath there. That was funny.
Yeah, yeah. So just breathe normally through the nose and sigh through the mouth, okay? We'll keep that extreme look over the left.
Do this if you're driving.
Okay, can you notice a calming effect?
Yeah, like before, like, even my eyes were strained, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas now, for some reason, it's almost my eyes are like relaxing into it. I definitely feel more drawn to it than I did at the start.
And when you feel ready, swap over to the other side. So you can keep the hand there and then look over the other way.
Oh, turn my head.
It's fine. And breathe through the nose. Notice if you're holding your breath.
I'm noticing that I can't like my eyes are wanting to move more. Like I want to like look up and down rather than just to my immediate right.
Yeah. So you should have entered like a parasympathetic mode where you're starting to like feel more downregulated.
Yeah.
So then the next stage from this is like, so that's entering, your parasympathetic state. You're putting one hand, for the people who can't see this, you put in the palm of your hand on the base of the top of your spine and the base of your skull. And then you're looking extremely over to the left without moving your head. And then you're waiting, or even like, waiting for a sign that you're regulating. It could be a yawn. It could be a sense of like, you feel calmer.
Yeah, I
And
feel
then you
heavy almost in the body.
yeah, you feel more in the body.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like my bottoms of my eyes are almost like drowsy a bit compared to what they were when we was fully engaged in conversation.
Yeah, so you do it on either side, and then close your eyes when you feel ready, and then I want you to feel into the body. One part of your body will be noticeably more uh, active than the rest. So like you will almost be like, okay, I could plug into this part, and it would give me some energy.
I would say my hands actually right now.
Yeah, your hands.
Mm.
Okay, so your hands are now your resource points. So they are going to provide you with a resource for anything that you need to process or hold space for yourself. So within when you feel your hands, do they have a sense of color or shape or texture with them?
Feel more like this is gonna sound mental, but like when I do that, they felt more like a memory. You know, it was more like a remembering of what my nana's hands felt
Yeah.
like like that softness almost. You know, like I think yeah, I just feel like soft. I think because I've never really sat with how my hands feel.
Yeah.
Now that I'm recognizing that they are softer than what I once thought they were. You know, which is reminding me of my nana.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is that you are connected into your hands as a resource point, and it's triggered a memory of your, like almost like a loving memory of your nan.
Yeah, amazing memory. Just like I just remember, she basically used to like rub this like Brill cream on her husband's hair, and then like when he passed away, she'd like rub this like cream on her feet, and like so her hands were like always surrounded with like cream or some form of like moisturizer, and her hands were like literally like felt, you know. And when I grabbed them there, I just got that memory of just holding Banana's hand and it being super soft. Yeah, beautiful.
So that's amazing, mate. So just for context, like other people who resource could, like one client of mine who resources, he finds like his solar chakra will become like a yellow canvas, and then he will
Wow.
be able to see a yellow ball, like in his mind, in his imagination. He can see like a yellow ball in the center of his body, and then he feels into that, and then like he accesses it in a way. So as soon as you bring awareness to it, you're
Yeah, wow.
accessing the power. So what you just did is like you regulated your nervous system using like a sacrocranial technique, which is a type of osteopathic therapy on the back. As soon as you touch the back of your skull, it can create a reaction in the body. It can make you shiver, basically. I don't know if anyone's ever touched you in the back of the head and you go,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's because your nervous system is impacted straight away. Then you done a look to the left, look to the right, like spend some time on either side of the brain, and then resourcing is closing the eyes and then feeling into the body. Is there a source of energy in my body which is much more prominent now than before? And then straight away you're like, usually it comes straight away. You're like, oh, my hands. It could be like even your finger. It's like there's no wrong answer here. So it's just intuitively allowing you to feel into what area of you as a being has got something to allow you to plug in right now.
Yeah.
And then you use a memory for that is extremely important, because it's like linked to a love and connection.
Yeah, amazing, man. Thanks so much. That was cool. That was really good. I'm gonna take that now and implement
Yeah.
that into my practice. So thank you. Yeah, well, I was not expecting that. Like seriously, I was not expecting that. That's the first time we've done anything like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just remember just like her hand being like there and me. I think I even grabbed it as I grabbed my own hand. Then I think I grabbed it like that, and I remember saying to her like, "Wow, your hands are so soft." I remember saying this, and she told me about the Brill cream in my granddad's hair, and then a Vaseline. She used Vaseline or something before Brill cream. Like did all this stuff, and so her hands like super super soft, and like just touching that there made me remember that, and also this. She loved lavender. She loved lavender. So I'm like, right, I'm gonna go see if the missus has got any lavender essential oils now. And be like,
Yeah.
right, get out my pillow tonight, mate.
Yeah.
So, brother, honestly, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I'm sure we can do it again at some point. If people were to like this conversation and think, do you know what, I'd like to get in touch with this guy and maybe have some therapy or have more of a discussion, one-to-one work, how can they get in touch with you, or what should they do to get a hold?
Yeah, my email is alexander@sacredprayer.co.uk, and you can just contact me in that way if you want to speak to me or hit me up for anything.
What we should do is, if after this you send me your details, I'll put the details in the description so they can contact you. And then the last question I ask everybody is, and if you don't have an answer, that's also absolutely fine, brother. Sorry, can you recommend anybody for this podcast? Do you know anybody that would be interested? That's some form of therapist, psychotherapist, psychologist, any therapist, cognitive behavioral therapist, neurolinguistic programmer, somebody that works with people. And yeah, if you have anybody, just let me know. Maybe drop me a message or get in touch with them, and so we can get more people on this podcast. But in the meantime, brother, yeah, thanks ever so much, man. I really appreciate you. And yeah, take care.
Bless you, brother.
Bye bye.